So that was the first understanding. We expanded beyond security, and we can fix things that are not just security related. We can fix things that are related to SRE, to software reliability engineering, we can fix things that are related to cost and performance optimization. So that's one. And the second one is we're no longer just looking at existing code and saying, there you go, I fixed it for you. We decided to shift all the way left. And that's kind of a security paradigm. Shifting left, meaning getting as close to the development process as possible. And today we're at the development environment itself, and we're there sort of as a good angel on the shoulder of that engineer who's writing the code.
Hi, my name is Dimitri Panici, and I'm a content creator, agency owner, and AI enthusiast. You're listening to the AI Agents Podcast, brought to you by Jotform, and featuring our very own CEO and founder, Ida Tank. This is the show where artificial intelligence meets innovation, productivity, and the tools shaping the future of work. Enjoy the show. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the AI Agents Podcast. In this episode, we have the co-founder and CEO of Gombok.ai, Ian Amit. How are you doing today, Ian?
Pretty good, Dimitri. How about yourself?
I'm living the dream. I have to be. That's the only way to live. I appreciate you for making the time today. I think it's a really great time to be in the world of AI, talking with cool people like yourself. And, just to kind of kick things off, you have a pretty big background in the security space, from my understanding, and now you're kind of in this realm of AI. Could you kind of tell us how you made it into this world of AI and AI agents?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the way that you're calling me old. It's a pretty big background in security. No,
the larger, that's fair. It is a logical entailment. I apologize.
No, I'm just kidding. So again, to make a long story short, I would like to start by saying that AI has been around forever. Yeah, it's not really new. It's just the fact that in the past 3-5 years, we've been focusing really on those new companies that operate within, this new hype cycle of generative AI that brought it to attention. But as you noted, I've been in the security industry for almost 30 years now, both as a practitioner, kind of grew through the ranks of hacking and pen testing, and later on consulting and running consulting teams, as well as working in corporate where I defended organizations and eventually end up at leadership positions, such as a chief security officer for a few public companies here. But my exposure to AI has been out there for quite a bit. And I think that specifically for cybersecurity, it's a field that generously benefits from the kinds of automation and advantages that AI can bring to it. Since we're dealing with so much information, disparate data sources, unstructured data, and it all falls on the shoulders of the practitioners who are expected to, go through all of that and make very quick decisions, sometimes very critical decisions. So my personal exposure to it has been out there for quite a bit. And in this last iteration where I've created Gombok.ai, is basically my attempt to apply those AI algorithms and models to a specific area in that space.
Yeah, interesting. So I have not had a lot of experience in the security space. I don't know too much about it, honestly. I think it's one of those areas that I'd love to learn a little bit more on. What do you think is kind of some of the things that you learned in that area that kind of got you prepared best to get into the field you're in now with what you're doing at Gombok?
That's a great question. My personal experience has been on both sides of the cybersecurity kind of field, both as an attacker who is tasked with challenging and finding flaws and understanding, a target's kind of, you know, IT layout and capabilities and finding ways in, as well as a defender who's designed to counter those attack elements, who's expected to build defenses and be able to deploy controls and tools that would alert the defender from malicious activity on malicious activity, and allow that defender to take action and circumvent those kind of attacks. So having been on kind of both sides of the practice really prepares you to understand how to utilize AI from an attacker perspective. And I kind of alluded to it at the beginning. The fact that you have to be knowledgeable across different multiple domains, both technological as well as kind of business or process, um, as well as the requirement to be able to ingest and process unstructured data from multiple sources. It could be, doing some open source reconnaissance and intelligence on someone, trying to understand where did they go to school, what did they study, where they're from, like we discussed initially, what languages do they speak. Find a way to abuse that or to use that to your advantage when you're communicating with them, as well as the technical sides. What's the technology that's being used, what languages are utilized uh, in their environment, all the way down to what sort of operating systems and applications are in use, and have a familiarity with those to the extent that that certain versions or certain capabilities or platforms have vulnerabilities, and then be able to string all those together and execute an attack that takes advantage of all of those different vulnerabilities and information, and gets to that, crown jewel, so to speak, of the organization. So again, we're talking about multiple domains, different data, different technologies. Historically, what security has been using again is sort of automated tools and means for collecting and classifying and enabling a practitioner to master or to be able to manage that information, and the bulk of the thinking and processing and kind of finding the right narrative through all of those data domains is left for the practitioner. And that is something that, again, AI provides a huge potential for someone to get rid of a lot of those uh, human tasks, automate those, and then only leave the practitioner with all the work products of understanding and correlating and collating that data, and then leaving it for the practitioner to use. And again, that works on both sides. I've described sort of an attacker perspective of looking at something or trying to figure out, how do I break in, how do I abuse a certain system. The same level of thinking is applied on the defensive side. So again, a lot of opportunities to disseminate, process, analyze bulks of data. From a defensive perspective, this grows exponentially. A defender, one of the biggest tasks for a cybersecurity practitioner in the corporate world is to be able to process terabytes of log data from firewalls and servers and applications and users and login systems. And so just think about the number of events and the number of software events that happen on a daily basis in a typical kind of corporate environment. All of that is being fed to a you know a centralized kind of processing system, where the cybersecurity professionals, defenders in that organizations are basically tasked with sifting through and identifying, going through all that data and identifying the anomalies, identifying patterns. And that's where AI again is very useful in the defensive cybersecurity scope. Finding those patterns that a human would have, a huge trouble addressing. We're talking terabytes and petabytes of data. When you task it to a model, an AI model that's being trained to look for anomalies, to look for patterns, to look for things that individually might not be problematic, but when they occur on a longer time span, going back to being able to process reams of data, it might pose a problem. So that's again that really that history, or at least my personal history, practicing cybersecurity, both as a hacker, as a defender, as a leader, as an executive who's tasked with defending all those organizations, and really kind of hone in my personal skills and the understanding of how and where to apply AI models most effectively.
Hmm. Yeah, no, it's that's interesting. I've noticed a trend definitely with a couple of different things. Like there's a lot of people who are working in output-based AI. Is how I'd like to word it. And the synthesization or the analysis of the kind of the other half of it seems to be a trend of new products, right? The first part of it was what's being outputted, and in this case, I guess people attempting to do nefarious things, and then there's the protection on your side. So understanding the outputs helps you understand the synthesization, I guess, and the inputs or the reflection to that. The first instance I had seen of this was there was an HR company that came on the show that we interviewed, and they were pretty forward about how there's a lot of problems in resumes being mass sent to companies now, and there's like no AI to synthesize the other half of it. So the ingestion and analysis is what matters. Interesting. So just another follow-up question I had, just more on the development side. I saw that, I think it was back in 2023, Gombok.ai was a top 4 finalist at the Black Hat Startup Spotlight shortly after launching. Can you kind of take us back to the early days of development? Was there like a specific frustration that you faced related to unresolved tickets? Like what kind of was it like in the early days, and what was really top of mind for you then?
Yeah, it really goes back to the reason why I started Gombok to begin with. Yeah, that was on the heels of my last role as a chief security officer, where I realized that I've managed to build a pretty solid kind of cyber practice, security practice in the corporate that I used to work with, and I had visibility. I could know what's wrong in my cloud environments. I could identify anomalies and activities that are problematic across my IT infrastructure and the physical kind of presence across the different offices we had around the world. But when it came to addressing issues, especially in the cloud environments, especially in those environments that are much more ephemeral, that are continuously changing, when it came down to fixing those things, that's where I saw a problem. And going back to your point about issues with development, finding something that's wrong and calling a baby ugly is easy. That's what we've been doing for decades in cybersecurity. Addressing and being able to fix those issues systematically from the root cause is the biggest problem. And that's why, again, I decided to kind of tackle that space, not necessarily of building another product that's going to tell you, hey, this is wrong, go fix it. But because again, we all know that. But really coming in as sort of your DevOps agent that takes you from detection all the way through remediation, all the way through giving you the work product, going back to your point about the outputs of AI. Uh, my vision was to create that agent that takes the burden off of the engineers who are bombarded with multiple alerts from security products, who are inundated by changes in regulatory compliance and shifting environments. And suddenly AWS comes up, especially after reInvent last in the past couple of weeks, with a bevy of new services and updated services. All of that basically funnels down to a DevOps engineer that has to deal with that environment and come up with a correct fix or an update for an environment, or build environments that are compliant with all of those changes. So it was really that uh, kind of motive that drove me to start Gombok, realizing that this is where the friction is at. We don't have a find problem, we have a fix problem in the corporate world. And in that particular space, I realized even the most advanced, generative AI models could not fix. They just did not have the level of accuracy and contextual ability to say, here's the work product, here is the fix for you, Mr. DevOps engineer. I did all the kind of heavy lifting for you. Go ahead and apply this. Go ahead and review this. I've saved you all that toil and work and research and checking references and looking up documentation. and understanding what is it that the security alert wants and why does it, why it needs to be encrypted and why it needs to be protected. All of that is done for you, fully explained, fully reasoned. There you go. Implement the fix.
Yeah, no, that's it's really interesting to learn about these new areas. I feel like it teaches me more about the landscape every single time, and I always love hearing the stories about how people get initially kind of into the venture they're doing. How many people currently are at Gombok,
So
company
we're
wise?
currently 16 employees at Gombok. I like to keep things lean and effective and efficient. Mostly based out of our office here in New York City.
So you have a lot of people are it's a constantly evolving thing. I asked you at the beginning, kind of like what was it like. Now getting to now, the last 6 months, what's your tagline you say for like this is what we do, and how has that kind of changed since the beginning?
Right. No, that's a good one. So the tagline really remains, it's all about the fix.
Mm.
As I said before, it's not about finding problems, it's about fixing them. But what changed over the past 6 months is a better understanding that we should go as far back into the source of the problem as possible. When we started, we were all about coming in and saying, all right, here's the fix for you. I see your code, I see your environment, I understand what the requirements are from a security perspective, and I'm going to provide that fix for you ad hoc for your existing environment to implement. So we've taken that, and the journey that we went through over the past 2.5, 3 years was, first of all, to understand that this is not just a security problem. This is not just a security problem. This is an engineering problem. Security is one of those elements, like I mentioned before, that finds themselves at the receiving end, at the DevOps engineers kind of task list of things to do to their environment. So that was the first understanding. We expanded beyond security, and we can fix things that are not just security related. We can fix things that are related to SRE, to software reliability engineering. We can fix things that are related to cost and performance optimization. So that's one. And the second one is, we're no longer just fixing things ad hoc. We're no longer just looking at existing code and saying, there you go, I fixed it for you. We decided to shift all the way left. And that's kind of a security paradigm, shifting left, meaning getting as close to the development process as possible. And today, we're at the IDE, we're at the development environment itself, and we're there sort of as the good angel on the shoulder of that engineer who's writing the code. So the second that someone starts building a cloud environment, starts putting out an architecture, before they even deploy the first version of it, we're there to accompany them and apply fixes, apply and kind of bring those different policies that I've mentioned to life almost at real time at the editor itself, at the IDE. So when I'm spinning up, when I'm just writing or even prompting uh, an AI like a cursor or a copilot to start build or add another element to my environment, Gomok is there to apply the fixes to that code before it even makes it to, before you even save it for the first time. So that's what we've been, that's the kind of transformation of that tagline of it's all about the fix, but we've moved it as early as possible to prevent any kind of rework. Because the second that an engineer puts something out, the second that you code something and you deploy it, the last thing you want to do is go back and fix it or change it. If it's working, it's working. That's it. You want to forget it and move on to the next thing. So being able to address things and provide those fixes as early as when the code is being generated, that's been what we've been kind of focusing on in the past 6 months.
Interesting. Yeah. What do you think you're probably going to be focusing on in the near future then?
It's really a combination of getting Gombok at the hands of more and more engineers, and we've recently released a fully free community edition where an engineer, even if let's say the company hasn't bought Gombok yet as a platform, they can still use the community edition to help them fix issues in their code for free,
Hmm.
just as part of the community. What they don't get is kind of, it's the enterprise features. It's the ability to customize the policies, the ability to generate reports, or have more advanced integrations into kind of a full enterprise environment. But that's one of those areas that we're really focused on, because we do believe that clean coding and being able to produce clean environments is the key for optimizing for that, the boost of productivity that all those Gen AI tools have been promising and under delivering. So that's one area. And the second one is truly, more the enterprise side. On our customer side, is being able to do what they need, is understanding that they're faced with a set of different policies, different requirements that they constantly need to adapt to, and constantly need to see how do they implement that in their environment. So Gombok is there to ingest all those requirements, all those changes, all those policies and frameworks and compliance reports, and come up with, again, not an alert that says this is wrong, this is out of compliance, but come up with, here's a fix for you. I saved you the work, and it's fully reasoned, it's fully contextual. All you have to do is now implement it. So these are kind of the two different tracks that we're focused on in the next couple of quarters. And it's really about minimizing the friction. It's about being able to say, here's an arbitrary set of like Acme's internal DevOps policies on how to deploy to the cloud. It might be affected by multiple compliance requirements, like financials, like healthcare, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, here's the policy that I want to implement. We can take that and
Yeah.
simply come up with the war product. Yeah.
Well, what do you think is like the hardest thing when it comes to both implementation of what you're doing and explanation to your customers right now?
Right. It's sort of combined together. It's
Mm.
and I alluded to it before by saying there's a huge hype cycle right now. Anything that's got AI in it is like, oh my god, yes, this is going to solve the world. And but the bottom line is explaining to our customers and prospects that we're not just another iteration or a fancy interface to one of the common generative AI models. And that's the biggest problem, because at some point the industry started hurting itself by overpromising, by saying this is going to 10x the amount of code that you can generate. Which is, again, it's not a lie, but no one talks about the other side of the 10x code, which is you get 10x the bugs and the same
Mm.
time to resolve those bugs. And on top of those bugs, you get hallucinations, you get inaccuracies, and you need to continuously kind of, I call it wrestle the pig, which is create creative prompts to go around some of the limitations and to make it more accurate. And sort of, I've seen sometimes people feel like they have to convince their AI model to do something, to write code, to not just put a comment that says, "Oh, this is trivial, like fill in the rest of the code." It's like, no, this is I'm literally paying you to do this. So it's really making them understand that we're not another generative AI model, and to explain what determinism is. We're a deterministic AI model. Eh, for the same set of inputs and environment, we will produce the same output. Unlike a generative model, which is designed to produce new results all of the time. For an engineer, that creativity is flawed. That creativity, the fact that
Mm.
for the same set of inputs, for my environment and these services, I want you to fix something. When you come up with, different answers and different fixes, while I haven't changed anything, that's not a trust building exercise. So it's really about building the trust with the users, with the engineers, where they can actually see. And that's why we came up with the community edition, to give them an opportunity to experience what is it like to work with a deterministic model. And oftentimes what they do is they use, as I said, the generative AI models. They tell it, hey, build me this and that environment. And again, it produces fantastic code, looks beautiful, but more often it just doesn't work, and it definitely doesn't meet the requirements of their particular organization. We're there then, in that with that community edition to provide those fixes even to the generated code to make it work, to ground it to reality, and to make it compliant with whatever policies you need without having to come up with elaborate prompts. So it's really that kind of combined education and trust building exercise that that's the focus of our go to market approach right now.
Yeah, no, I'd never considered the lack of or creativity being problematic in a sense. I mean, I have played around with some of the AI coding stuff. Like I used Lovable a fair amount, and there is some interesting moments where that does occur. Like I had a bug on this thing I'm building. It's like an internal tool for the team. Which, by the way, anyone in this space, just if you're into automation and stuff already, you can hack together an internal process tool that's way cheaper than like using make.com and paying for it all the time. Anyways,
Oh yeah,
back to the main point.
absolutely.
I'm learning that very quickly with stuff I'm doing. But there is a issue that I was running into where it was like I had a theme that was fine, and I added some prompts to make it look nicer, etc. And at some point, it made a separate version of a drop-down handler, and I was in like a spin cycle of an hour of trying to fix it, and then I noticed one of them was working correctly, and I was like, don't tell me. And I said, are these two different components? And they're like, yes. And I was like, why did you make a new, there should be a universal drop down, just right. Why? So yeah, that took me like an hour to fix it because I didn't realize it, and then I was tired and it didn't come to mind. And yeah, I'm sure that's some of the creativity you're trying to
exactly remove, right? and I love that example. And I love that example. It's
like, why would you do that?
Provided it's beyond the why did you just do that, but the fact that you've spent probably more than an hour debugging and trying to figure out why is this happening, and ending up with the conclusion that something was created here that doesn't match what was created there, and then it's like trying to, and now having to fix that, now having to either migrate this model to another, or think about the back end of what happens there. This is exactly what a lot of engineers are frustrated with, and again, it's pretty much the same experience. You can put up something really quickly and be like, wow, you just saved me like 5 hours of coding and designing. And then you end up spending 6 hours debugging something and trying to understand what's the root cause and where does that fail. And net, you're back at square one. You could have done this yourself, or without all the debugging. And I think that the biggest issue here is the things that you haven't realized that are broken yet. That you haven't realized that might be, oh, is that label a different class, a different kind of instance of a label or a text, or a component? And when is that going to bite me, further down the line when I need to make some changes or extend that? So again, I love the example. And again, this is a very simplified example. Think about the people who are using that, not in a kind of a lovable or base 44, but in actual code, which is 10 times more complex and requires 10 times more kind of knowledge and understanding of what that code does. So thanks for the example. That's fantastic.
For sure. Yeah. It's something I hacked together that's like not crazy complicated. I think it's really effective for what I'm doing. But as I, made that implementation of style improvement, I realized that there was some universality issues. So then I had to stop obviously adding anything new on and fixing that, because it was just going to keep running with the same mistake. And I'm sure that could be something that if there's not properly QA'd on large things, like you're saying, 10x more of an issue, because it took a long time for it to, it doesn't have like a magic remove or fix button either, because I had to tell it like 10 prompts in a row, 20 prompts in a 15 prompts in a row, like fix the remaining ones, fix the remaining ones, fix the remaining ones, fix the remaining ones, fix the remaining ones. And then it finally did. But it took forever. So yeah. What are some other examples maybe like that you're seeing that's kind of occurring right now that you would want to give an example to the audience of maybe what's out there for people to be concerned about and look out for, and what they're doing and how you guys have helped people prevent these issues.
Yeah, no, that's good. Again, when you started the question, I was like, this is a very, very broad stroke, but when it concerns our framing, which again, I will clearly say we're only dealing with a small portion of what's required for an application to be deployed. We're dealing with the infrastructure. We're dealing with the foundations of how is that going to be deployed into the cloud or in on-prem. And actually, we're still dealing with the same old issues. Uh, I'll give you two different examples. One is things that are not encrypted. You want your data to be encrypted, especially you as a consumer, and myself as well as a consumer. You want to have the level of trust in your providers, in the vendors that you're using, that whatever data that you're giving them is going to be encrypted, is going to be protected properly. It is still very common, going back to your example, to find and continuously find, oh, we forgot about this. Oh, we forgot about that. Oh, there's something in the, in transition, that where we take the data, process it, and then send it out, but that is not encrypted. And you end up with another database, with another location in your architecture that does not have adequate protections for the data that you have been entrusted with. So that's a classic example. Yeah, when we work with our customers, we often hear, well, yeah, like this is the architecture, this is where the data lies, and that's protected, that's encrypted or secured. Uh, and then they automatically go, and there's a lot of other areas that we're still trying to kind of find out and weed out, and every time something pops out, and the process, and again, it's less about finding, the process of now telling, or reconfiguring that environment to have the adequate protections is what takes a lot of time. Again, pretty much like your example of, oh, do this as well, and do that as well, do that as well. So, I'm just riffing on the same example, and giving you the corollary of what does that look like in an enterprise environment. The second example is, again, trivial. Keeping things open. Open S3 buckets has been, since pretty much the day that S3 buckets have been invented, the bane of security issues, and the equivalent of those. Basically, forgetting to properly restrict access to information. And
Hmm.
again, these might be storage units that are designed to have information in the clear, but should not be accessible to the public, especially if they can also be written to, not just read from. So, uh, finding all those things is one part of the problem. Fairly trivial, can still be automated to a large extent. Applying the right controls and making sure that they're not open to the public, and doing that as part of the overall architecture, is still one of the biggest problems. And what our customers tell us is, since we can do things in a contextual manner, we're not just slapping, a stop sign in front of an S3 bucket. We're not just shutting down an instance. We're understanding what is the architecture within that instance lives, and provide a bespoke, kind of curated, deterministic fix for that architecture to prevent access to that resource, while allowing that resource, that architectures, to still live. That's where we're being told that we're saving dozens of hours of engineering time that otherwise would have been spent on trying to kind of untangle, how does that environment look like? What are the requirements? What's the documentation? So these are the two most common kind of use cases. And I'm not even talking about other things that are more hygiene or cost optimization, or even maintaining an environment, and upgrading and updating certain software components in that environment in an automated fashion that still takes into account the context, and not just trying to kind of mass upgrade a software version for a component that ends up typically with a disaster.
What is your ultimate goal for what you're doing in the next 3 to 5 years, and what would you like to leave people with in order for them to better understand why that's a vision worth working towards?
I'll make it very quick. The ultimate goal is to save people time, and especially organizations, to save engineers time that is currently spent in a non-effective manner, that is repeatable, that requires them to do a lot of reading and contextualizing. That's my goal, is to remove a lot of toil from the process of engineering, of platform engineering. And that only comes with a proper understanding of what tools do you have available for you. Right now, one of the biggest problems that I think that our industry is facing is the fact that Gen AI and all those Gen AI models are portrayed as the best hammer that was ever produced, and everyone is yielding that hammer and turning everything into a nail or a thumb more more often. Understanding, and it goes back to your first question that you asked me, when did I start kind of understanding AI? And I told you, AI has been around for decades. Understanding that Gen AI is not the only AI available in their toolbox, that there are a plethora of different models that are designed to solve different problems. And Gen AI might be great at generating images and creating text and helping you write, but it's not the right tool for a precise engineering kind of task that platform engineers and software developers often need. So I would leave them with, you know, the blessing of understanding that they do have more than just a hammer in their toolbox, that they can have, you know, a set of completely different tools, and having the education to know how to use each tool for each task. That's what I think I would leave the audience with.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. Well, with that being said, I really appreciate the time you spent here today. Where can everyone go to find what you all are doing over there at your company?
Well, obviously, Gombok.ai is our website, and I've mentioned the community edition. So if you just go to Gombok.ai/community, you don't have to talk to me or any of my salespeople. You can just go ahead and download it and experience it for yourself, and see the difference. Really see the difference between a generative AI model, like again, a Cursor, Claude, OpenAI, whatever it is, and a deterministic one that is fast and accurate. Yeah, so feel free to download and experiment. And the only thing I'm asking is send some feedback.
For sure. Well, with that being said, please make sure to go to Gombok.ai. That's GOMBOC.ai. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, everyone. Make sure to leave a like, comment, and we will see you in the next one. Peace.